gentlewoman from Vermont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start by just doing some level setting. Americans don't like these mergers. They don't want a few giant companies controlling what they see and what they hear. We want choices. We want more choices. We want artistic freedom. And we don't want a handful of companies deciding the content that we see. I hear this over and over again from my constituents. When these giant companies merge, things get better for the people at the top over and over again, every single time, and worse for the rest of us. And I want us to remember that 2 of the 3 companies we're talking about today exist because of at least one previous merger. It wasn't long ago that Paramount, Skydance, Warner Brothers, and Discovery were separate companies. We need competition. We do not need more consolidation. Mr. Woods, thanks so much for being here today. Why is it that our media landscape right now has become so consolidated?
Oh, thank you for the question, Congressman. I mean, I think it's just decades now of lax antitrust enforcement, and that certainly started to turn a corner with the last administration. And I think even the first Trump administration, we did see efforts there to try to block AT&T from buying Time Warner. So, you know, there have been some bright spots. There have been some mergers that we've opposed that have been stopped, like AT&T buying T-Mobile, Comcast buying Time Warner Cable, but those are few and far between. There's been this sort of flood of deals that have gone through. And as you said, it always gets better for the people in the C-suite, but much less often for their customers.
I agree, and I agree with you too that it is lax antitrust enforcement. And you know, you touched on this earlier. Who wins, who loses when these mega mergers happen? Let's put a finer point to it. Who wins?
Yeah, I mean, it's the companies and their shareholders, although not always, because a lot of these deals have been bad bets for them as well. We've talked today about potential innovation and efficiencies and competition being improved in some sense by mergers, and I wouldn't say that's impossible. I would just say that's a pretty high bar. So what you really need is for those efficiencies to be passed along to people rather than just pocketed by the companies. You need to have remaining competition.
I agree.
Sufficient incentive for them to not just pocket those savings, but to actually have to put them back into the business and try to keep their customers happy.
I agree, and you know, from what we've heard so far, Paramount and Netflix have submitted bids that already raise significant concerns. And we're at the start of what's going to be a very long battle about this. And our committee is not responsible at all for deciding which deal or neither violates the law. That decision is in the hands of the Department of Justice. But we know that the DOJ has not been unbiased. That is a strong concern that many of us on this committee have. At the last meeting of this subcommittee, Roger Alford, a DOJ whistleblower, described the pay-to-play climate at the Antitrust Division. And President Trump recently has said he will be, quote, involved in the Warner Brothers deal. What do you think he means by that, Mr. Wood, when he says he's going to be involved? What's he talking about?
Well, I'm smiling because sometimes it's down to which movies he wants to see made, so it can get kind of ridiculous, but I think it's also just about the Trump family's own fates and fortunes here, and then these political choices that, again, are, you know, it's not that the political choices aren't real or somehow are completely invalid, but the government should not be imposing its will on companies. That's a violation of the First Amendment when they're dangling antitrust review and approval based on content changes. And of course, as we're all saying, this should be a market analysis. So I agree with my fellow witnesses that market definition is key here. The merger proponents will always try to expand that market and say we're not that concentrated. Opponents of the deal will try to shrink it. Those are, again, interesting questions, and they're asked in good faith, but that doesn't mean that the White House weighing in does anything to advance that analysis. It probably just impedes it and takes it off track.
And our job essentially here is to be the watchdog, to be doing the oversight, to be the eyes and ears of our constituents who can't be in this committee hearing room. And I urge the chair of this committee to take the role of this committee seriously. There is strong evidence that our antitrust enforcement system is being corrupted, and we have to use our constitutional authority to investigate. Monopolies hurt all Americans, and whether it's in meatpacking, whether it is in fire truck manufacturing, whether it's in the monopoly of the seed industry, or in this case, if it's in the media landscape, we have to be effective watchdogs and not just roll over for an administration that is not doing its due diligence for the American people. And with that, Mr. Chair, I have 2 unanimous consent that I bring before the committee in relationship to whether further consolidation in the industry is going to be a threat to movie theaters and theatrical releases. Movie theaters dread any Warner Brothers merger by the Hollywood Reporter.
Without objection.
And second one, Gen Z went to movie theaters most often in 2025, according to new exhibition report. Thank you so much, and I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, without